Welcome to Up Level, Real Health, Real Talk with Dr. Jenna Blasi. I'm Dr. Jenna. I spent years crafting ways to help women thrive, and I want to help you do the same. On this podcast, we dive deep into health at every level, focusing on the mind, the body, and the spirit. This is where real conversations meet transformational wellness. We'll be talking about all the things that truly matter, from nutrition and fitness to lifestyle, mindset, and personal development. Plus, the real deal on managing stress and navigating menopause. So if you're ready to elevate your health journey with authentic, transformative insights, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to Up Level. Today we're going to have a conversation that many are not having and that we need to, and that is libido, sexual health, and desire. Why are we not talking about this? I think a lot of people have shame around this issue. So let's clear out the shame and talk about what is really going on with libido, with intimacy, and sexual health in midlife, because it's really time that we normalize this. You've been feeling off, maybe disinterested in sex, feel like your libido has plummeted. Maybe you feel emotionally disconnected, ashamed, confused. This is for you if you're any of those things, or you just feel your desire has faded. I want you to know you're absolutely not alone, and you are definitely not done. All right. Midlife does not mean the decline of sex and intimacy. So my promise to you in this episode, no shame, no fluff, just education, hopefully some validation and empowerment. My goal is always empowerment. Sexual health is health. And it is time we stop whispering about it. So let's break it down. First, let's talk about what's really going on. Why does your libido shift during perimenopause and menopause? If you've been feeling off sexually or like your spark has faded, as I said, you're not alone. So first of all, let's normalize that. Decreased libido is going on. Vaginal dryness, pain with sex, maybe lower self-esteem, body image shifts. All of these things are happening in menopause and perimenopause. So we have the hormone piece, estrogen, testosterone, DHEA, and their decline during perimenopause and menopause. Now, estrogen is declining rapidly. Testosterone actually declines with age more so than menopause specifically, but everything's kind of coming down. So that's affecting our libido, our desire, vaginal dryness, etc., the things I was mentioning. Then we have the brain and nervous system. We did the last podcast on nervous system. So if you missed it, check it out, because desire starts in the brain. It's not just physical. Yes, there's the physical aspect, but so much of it is also the brain. And so another important point to recognize is that a lot of us women have a responsive desire versus a spontaneous desire. So most women don't just feel like it anymore, and that's normal. And so we have to respond to something rather than just having this spontaneous desire that maybe we had when we were younger. And so I want to approach this from a whole body perspective. Libido is also about stress. It's about connection. It's about thyroid and the adrenals, nourishment through our food, nourishment of our soul, sleep destruction, not destruction, could be sleep destruction, sleep disruption. Hopefully it's not completely destructed. An emotional load impact desire. So sleep impacts desire. Your emotional load impacts desire. And this is really a key point. It is not just physical. Libido is multi-layered. Mind, body, emotions, relationship, right? Mind, body, soul, I've talked about in previous episodes. So perhaps we redefine sexual health and desire and not try to get back to something we had in the past, but look at what is the opportunity for this new phase of our life. And so sex, we have this idea, right? Sex is spontaneous. It's wild desire. Reality, it's often more of a responsive desire. You can have those spontaneous desires, but it's more often responsive, especially at this time of life. It's also about emotional safety. connection, and feeling good in your body. These are huge. So if you've gained weight during menopause and perimenopause and you've got midsection weight and you're not feeling as attractive, you're not feeling as good in your body, a lot of the women that I work with, they're like, I don't even recognize who I am anymore. That could affect your libido. It affects how you feel about yourself. It affects your self-esteem, which is going to affect your desire to be intimate. Not everybody, but many will have that response. And so the good news is, there's lots of good news, but the good news is desire can be cultivated. It's not just something you have or don't have. And libido is not just about sex. It's about life force. It's about vitality. It's about pleasure. It's about feeling alive. And so holistic hormonal support, holistic you support, you as a whole person matters. So if we break this down a little bit more, what's the impact of these things I just mentioned? Stress, sleep, resentment, unspoken needs. I often refer to midlife as a time where things catch up with us. If you've just been pushing, and then we hit these changes of perimenopause and menopause, and the body won't tolerate it anymore. So how long has stress been accumulating? How long has disrupted sleep been going on? Has resentment been building in your life towards your partner, towards your responsibilities? What unspoken needs do you have? These will all impact libido more strongly than maybe they did before perimenopause and menopause. Medications impact these things. SSRIs, antihistamines, hormonal birth control all affect our hormones, libido, desire on different levels. And then there's trauma, emotional disconnection. And so when we try to isolate and address a decreased libido from one angle, you may not get the results and often will not get the results that you're looking for. I find this with health in general. If we just address everybody, we often want to pin it on one thing. It's my hormones. I know it. My hormones are off balance and everything's going to be great when my hormones are balanced. That could be true. But if you're not eating well, all the balanced hormones in the world, balance is kind of a misnomer because it's very individual, but all of these things matter and you as a whole person matters. So, it's not just about, quote unquote, fixing your vagina. We're looking at ourselves, we're looking at our relationship, and we're looking at all of these other pieces. So my question to you is, what if your libido, I always think it's good to ask ourselves good questions. What is your libido asking you? What is it telling you, right? What if your libido is asking you to maybe come into a new version of you, a different version of you, not just get back to some old, outdated version? So let's talk about what you can do, because I always like to give practical solutions, right? Break down what is the issue, many of which we're not talking about. What does it mean? What is the message? What can we get out of it? And then what can we do about it? So I want to break this into 3 categories for simplicity: body, mind, and heart, which it's kind of funny because I talked about that, the nervous system, right? Or in the body, mind, soul. I talked about the Waldorf version is head, heart, and hands. And so now we're going to break it down into body, mind, and I'm going to include nervous system in that, and then heart and connection. So body there's the hormonal support aspect, maybe bioidentical hormone therapy, maybe DHEA, vaginal estrogen. So I have a whole other episode on hormone therapy and when it's appropriate, and you can go listen to that breakdown of hormone replacement therapy. But I will say again, vaginal estrogen is safe. If you've had a history of breast cancer, it's not contraindicated. Vaginal estrogen across the board is a really safe way to relubricate the vaginal tissue, address atrophy, address painful intercourse, etc. So again, you're working with a practitioner on this first bullet here, the hormone support, HRT or MHT, menopausal hormone therapy, or DHEA. You could probably do that on your own, but ideally with guidance, or vaginal estrogen. That's one route for the body. Another route is supplements. There's different supplements that could help. Magnesium, omegas, tribulus. There's different supplements. Again, I think working with a practitioner, because the supplement that you choose, or the supplement that's right for you, I should say, is largely determined by like, what is the underlying issue, right? Is the underlying issue a stress component? So maybe you're going to do the adaptogens like ashwagandha or Panax ginseng. So there's, depending on what the sort of cause is, besides just the obvious declining estrogen, that will help hone in on what is the right supplement for you. And do you have deficiencies? Like if you're deficient in magnesium, adding magnesium would, very likely it's going to increase circulation and help your sleep and other things. So this is where working, with someone that can help figure out what is the right protocol for you is really effective. Another body piece is strengthening the pelvic floor. Having a physical therapist that specializes in pelvic floor therapy. And let me just say now, if you're not on our newsletter list, go ahead and contact the office. I'll give you our email at the end, because our newsletter this month in June is on sexual health and libido and desire. And so we've got a fun recipe and a lot more information and deeper dive into some of these things that I'm talking about today. So it'll be a really nice conjunctive piece of information, if you will. I'm not sure what to call it. It's not a piece of information, but more information on this topic. So strengthening the pelvic floor, because a lot of women after babies, after menopause, we might have urinary incontinence. We might be getting chronic urinary tract infections, which by the way, vaginal estrogen will help. But if there's a pelvic floor prolapse or weakness or tension, addressing that with an expert I would highly recommend it. And then addressing dryness. That's a big piece. So in addition, or instead of vaginal estrogen, you could even look at lubricants, moisturizers like hyaluronic acid, etc., to help with the lubrication, because there's often a lot of the women that we see have pain on intercourse, and their libido is maybe not different, but they don't want to have sex because it hurts. And then that indirectly affects their libido. So that's the body piece. Mind plus nervous system for section number 2. Stress and cortisol are going to crash your libido. Again, if we're in fight or flight mode, the body doesn't want to stop and have joy and pleasure and connection and intercourse. It's like, go, go, go. So that stress piece is real. We cannot underestimate the effect of stress and cortisol, and stress impacts on our hormones, on cortisol in the body. So really to address activating the parasympathetic nervous system, like I talked about in the nervous system episode last week. The parasympathetic state equals safety. Your body feels safe when it's in a parasympathetic state. And so that opens us up to intimacy, because most of us don't want to be intimate when we don't feel safe. And so even if it's subconscious, you may not like intellectually feel unsafe, but if you're in a fight or flight sympathetic mode, your body feels unsafe. And so the desire may not be there because of that. And then to look at what tools you can use for helping with stress, helping activate the parasympathetic state. There's breath work. There's different types of body work. We talked about like vagus nerve activation, nervous system regulation, and sensual self-care. Find that joy in your body again. Find your love for your body. Most of us spend so much time criticizing ourselves. And I often tell women, look at how you're talking to yourself in your head. Would you say that to your little girl? Would you talk to your little girl like that? Would you be appalled if you heard someone else say to your little girl or child what you say to yourself? We have to stop berating ourselves and comparing ourselves to ridiculous Photoshop versions that aren't real of other people, and just learn to love and embrace ourselves. And so there's a sensual self-care piece. Could be taking a bath with lavender and candlelight or whatever it is that can calm the nervous system in a way that can nourish your libido, your desire, and help your sexual health. And the third is heart plus connection. Let me rewind and tell you about my friend who had a belly. Now, most of us don't like our belly, but she had a little belly. And I don't mean metabolically not healthy belly. I mean, she had a little extra belly the way that the women of 100 years ago in the quote unquote like goddess, and we had fuller hips and bigger bellies, and she loved her belly. And I was living in Boulder at the time, and most of the women there are like super fit and they want their washboard abs. And there was this friend of mine who just had this belly and she just loved it. And we worked at Wild Oats Market together, and we lived on top of this big hill, and her car broke down. And so she had to start biking to and from work. And so she was losing her belly. She was getting really upset. She's like, okay, I've got to eat more food. I'm losing my belly. I've got to get my car back soon. And the reason I bring this story up is because so many of us would look at that belly of ourselves and go, oh, I don't like this. And oh, I'm not supposed to have this belly and this is really unattractive. Or like I have a little extra on my hips. But when we lived in a day and time when that was considered very feminine and was looked up to, then we accept that. I remember I was in theater when I was in college, and I remember hearing another fellow actress say that she wished she'd lived in the 30s, went during the flapper era because flat chests were in. And she didn't, she had a flatter chest. And so look at how the outside dictates how we feel about ourselves. That's our point. That's my point. Like she would have felt better about her chest if she'd lived in a time when it was socially acceptable and more normal to have a flatter chest. Whereas today we're very much into the boobs everywhere, right? And so, what about not caring what the outside is dictating of what is beautiful and just find ourselves beautiful as we are? So back to my friend with the belly. I have always been self-conscious about my belly. I will admit, I've never had like that super flat belly. And I've tended, like, if I don't take care of my health, I tend towards being bloated. I tend towards, like, I remember in 9th grade going, look, I look like I'm pregnant, and I could push my belly out and I would look like I was pregnant because that's kind of my Achilles heel is my digestion, which is part of why I do what I do, because it keeps all of that in check. But, so I didn't personally want a belly. But I found her belly beautiful. And why did I find her belly so beautiful and sexy? Because she did. She had so much self-love and so much self-confidence. That was so beautiful to me. That was so much more beautiful to me than someone that's like totally obsessing over everything they eat. And they're in the gym 4 hours a day just so they can have no belly. But they probably don't even feel good about their body anyway, even with all that. So I tangent a little bit here, but I'm telling you this story because self-love is so important. Let's stop beating ourselves up. Could you look at yourself the way maybe somebody else does? I was so grateful for that friend, and I'll always remember that. I'll always remember that. And I remember in one movie, I don't know what it was, but there was this French woman and she was talking about like a little pot belly. And she's like, it's so sexy, a little pot belly. But in our culture, we don't think so. So where can we find love for ourselves as we work towards being the best, healthiest version? I didn't want to look pregnant because that's bloating, right? But can I also appreciate my body as I work towards the best version of me? Okay, number 3, heart plus connection. Communication with your partner. Communication with your partner is key. Are you expressing your needs? Are you being honest about where you're at and what you want and what's pleasurable to you? And maybe you need more foreplay and communicating with your partner. Or if there's underlying resentment, addressing those things. And then the other heart plus connection, which I already kind of spoke about because the sensual self-care took me in another direction, is healing the body image. Healing the body image or the identity shifts that occur in midlife. Many of us come into midlife already with body image issues. So let's heal that. Let's heal that finally and learn to love as we work on being the best versions of ourselves, loving ourselves in the process. I remember, with both of my children, I gained 50 pounds and I'm only 5'4", and that's if I stand really tall. I think now I'm like just barely 5'3.5". And so 50 pounds was a decent amount of weight on my frame. And when I had my babies, they didn't weigh, 35 pounds, right? So I still had weight to lose after that. And as I worked towards getting back to where I wanted to be and getting back towards where I was, I appreciated my body throughout that process. Look what my body did. It gave birth. And I knew I wanted to get back to fitting in my clothes and feeling like I did before the pregnancy, but I embraced my body. There were pluses, if you will, at all stages of that. And so can we learn to love ourselves now as we work towards being the best version of ourselves? You've noticed I've said a few times, the best version of ourselves, because we can't be somebody else. Everybody has different genetics. You can see this where sisters look the same and people look like they're, we look like our moms and or dads or whatever. There's a genetic piece at play. So healing the body image and the identity shifts, like, who am I? Now that my kids are out of the house, like, what do I want? Who am I? There's identity shifts that go on in midlife that also affect our libido, our desire, our sexual health. And then, to just reiterate again, reconnecting to self. So reconnecting to your partner, communicating with your partner, maybe having date nights, maybe setting up some scenarios around romance, around intimacy, but also having the time to reconnect with self, feeling worthy of pleasure, feeling worthy of rest. I give you permission to rest. You don't need my permission, but sometimes we just need someone to give us permission. So permission to rest, and also that you feel worthy of being alive, like feeling alive. Worthiness of pleasure, worthiness of aliveness. You deserve to thrive. And as I've said over and over, like, this is why I do what I do, because every woman that gets her aliveness, gets her self-love, heals her self-body image, lights up and makes the world a better place. Because women that feel comfortable in their body give you permission to feel comfortable in yours if they're not quote unquote perfect. Right? Especially because if a woman is comfortable in her body, or we think she is, and she meets some standard of beauty that we don't feel we can have, then maybe we're like, oh, I looked at this magazine, I don't feel good about myself. But my friend with her goddess belly gave everybody else permission too, right? To love themselves. So in sum, reconnect with your sexual self. Here are some approaches that actually help: communication and self-awareness, nervous system regulation, relaxation, touch, safety, lubricants, and vaginal estrogen. So there's non-hormonal and hormonal options, pelvic floor therapy, stress plus adrenal support to help you manage your stress. Adrenals, are, I don't think I've done a session just on adrenals, but adrenals are the little glands that sit on top of the kidneys, and they're the size of walnuts, but we work them like they are walnut trees, and they manage stress, and they manage, after menopause, when our ovaries start to shut down, they're managing the majority of our hormones and blood sugar, and they have so many important roles in our health and how we handle stress. And so having that adrenal support helps us manage our stress better. And then testosterone or DHEA cream when appropriate. And testosterone is another topic that women are so afraid of, these like adverse side effects, but so many women feel so much better when they have testosterone support in their bodies. So bring in joy, bring in play, bring in sensuality. It's not just sex. And really I want to underscore the importance of reclaiming your body and rewriting your story. You get to decide. Reclaim your body, reclaim your power, and rewrite your own story. Who you are, who you get to be, how you get to feel, that you are deserving of what you want. And so full permission slip, doctor's orders, and then some next steps. Let's normalize cycles of desire. There are seasons, there are cycles. It's okay to evolve. It's okay if you don't want to have sex 5 times a week anymore, right? And there's the partner match. And so this is where communication is key. What are your partner's desires? What are your partner's wants? What are your desires? What are your wants? And how do you find the bridge between the two so you can reconnect and everybody feels fulfilled and loved and taken care of? And if somebody has much higher needs, maybe than someone else, then maybe, they can self-pleasure and offset a little bit at times. And so communicating and recognizing that there are cycles of desire. There's cycles in everything. And as humans, we can interrupt those cycles. We can enforce our will on those cycles, but we can also just allow ourselves to relax a little bit and recognize it's okay to evolve. So I invite you to tune in to what your body and your heart are asking for. And where are you holding shame around issues of sex? I feel like money and sex, people have so much shame, so much guilt, so much judgment around money and sex. So I invite you to get curious, not ashamed. You're allowed to want more. You're allowed to want more, whether it's in your life and your career, whether it's for your desire, you're allowed to explore. And just to reiterate, your sexuality doesn't disappear with age. All right. It doesn't disappear with age. It just changes. It changes. And with the right support, it can actually deepen, not diminish, not disappear. And that's what I love about this time of life. I was in a webinar the other day, and the women were like, oh my gosh, like menopause is just like all this negative stuff, and this and this. And are there any positives to this experience? And I actually think it's the most amazing time of life. I love not getting my moon anymore, or my menses, or whatever you want to call it. I really do. I feel a real freedom in that. I feel stronger and more liberated in my 50s than I did in my 40s. And I think there's amazing things. And we step into that wise woman. I think I've mentioned before, I always appreciated getting older because I always felt like there was this wise woman inside of me. And as I get older, I'm getting closer and closer to being one with her. And now I actually feel one with her. I really do. And it's very cool. So some takeaways or some journal prompts, if you would like. Where do I feel disconnected from my sensual or sexual self or my partner? And where can I kind of take back power and responsibility? Another journal prompt, what messages about desire or aging am I ready to let go of? Right? What messages about sex and aging did I inherit, right? Passed on for generations probably, that no longer serve me. Just let it go. Journal it out. Let it go. What makes me feel most alive, vibrant, or turned on in life? Not just in bed. It's good to know what turns you on in bed, but just in life, like what makes you feel alive? Because when we feel alive and we feel vibrant, we're also, that's going to be related to our sexual health. I haven't read the full book, but there's a book called, I think it's called The Pink Canary, Dr. Jordan something, I believe. I apologize, I don't have her name. And she refers to libido as like the canary in the coal mine. I think that's why she calls it the pink canary. It's the canary in the coal mine. When the libido goes, it's actually an indication, right, that there's all these other things that have been going on. So when you explore what makes you feel alive and vibrant and turned on in life, it will actually help your sexual health as well. And then lastly, what's the one thing, like if you want to just pick one thing, what is the one thing I could explore this week? This is for you. What is the one thing I could explore this week to reconnect with my body, my own pleasure, or my partner? All right. So take those prompts, email us at hello@uplevelholistichealth.com. Let me know if this was impactful for you. Let me know, like get on our mailing list and ask for, because it will have already gone out, our newsletter, but ask for our June newsletter if you want more ideas around sexual health, libido, and desire. And remember, you are not alone. You're not alone. You're not failing. You're not broken. You're just in a new chapter. You're in a new chapter. And there are powerful tools and paths available. And I will tell you, you were born, we all were, I'll say we were born for connection, for pleasure, and for feeling fully alive at every age. So thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next time. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uplevel, Real Health, Real Talk. I hope today's conversation inspired you to take the next step in your health journey, one that nourishes not just your body, but your mind and spirit as well. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you found value in today's episode, please leave a review. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep thriving. And remember, true wellness is a journey, and you are on the right path.